Hi, I'm Jonathan Bowman-Perks, and welcome back to my favourite time of the week. As part of the Inspiring Leadership series, I'm here with Brigadier Jim Richardson, who is the CEO of the Haig Housing Trust. And we're actually here in one of the sites, a brand new build, very impressive build, that servicemen who've been disabled or who have fallen upon difficulty are able to come and benefit from what Jim and his huge team do around the country. But Jim, I've chosen as one of the inspiring leaders to talk to because he's had a phenomenal career. We've known each other for some 30 years or more. Began as what people would describe as a private soldier, as a Royal Signals technician, and has gone all the way up to Brigade Commander, which is one hell of an achievement. The only other person I think I know was John Stokoe, who also had a similar background and made it to Major General. But Jim, a little bit more about what you're doing now as a CEO, and just a short bit on your history and your background.
Yeah, well, I left the Army 6 years ago. I had a great career, 35 years, sort of man and boy is the word, because I was 16 when I joined. And it was very important to me that I came to something that grabbed my enthusiasm, that I wanted to do, that I love. The old adage, find a job you love, you never work a day in your life. I'd had that in the Army, and I wanted it. And I wanted to continue, and by helping veterans and families of veterans, in housing need, it's just been brilliant. I'd be able to put, my enthusiasm into developing more homes, making the charity face the contemporary challenge of what people need. To do that, I've got a great team, some ex-military, most of them not actually, and just bringing to them a real sense of purpose as to why we've got to cherish veterans in our country.
And you've learned, you've been involved in the military for so long. We were talking earlier about some of the inspiring leaders that you've worked for, General Mike Walker, and then you Nick Parker, and then you were working for General Patraeus, the American general. You mentioned that experience as being a story that stuck in your mind. Do you want to share that story?
Yeah, it's the one that I'd pick out, and I have worked with a lot of inspiring leaders all the way up from my most junior days in the Army. But I just picked David Patraeus. Really because I got to Iraq in sort of December 2006, about 12 weeks before he did, and Iraq was going down the pan. There was a civil war. We really hadn't thought of what we were going to do after we got rid of Saddam Hussein. We were not ready for post-conflict, and it was deteriorating. And David Patraeus came and just had courage in his own conviction of how to solve it. And he convinced and brought resource in, fantastic level of resource of Arabists, industrialists, educationalists, people from all walks of life and society, mainly Americans, and along with an American, Colonel H.L. McMaster, who I've now become great friends with, we co-chaired his Brains Trust. That's what they got called, and we sort of just took to pieces what was going wrong in Iraq and what were the barriers to progress to put it right. But in doing so, what I saw in David Patraeus is this leader so convinced in his own mind of the way to go on and to put things right, even when there were detractors and criticism.
Because that's what many of the leaders listening will have the same challenge, won't they?
Well, yes. I think they will. But he had this great courage of his own conviction, and he was right. And it was just very inspiring to work for him. He was such a powerful intellect, but not an intellectual bully in any way, and he just brought the best out of everybody. But the one thing that I noticed is before I went to Iraq, I had a view of the American Army of being sort of risk averse, into force protection more than doing the job, worrying about body bags, body count, and things like that. And he was just so completely different, in a way of no, we've got to take some risks to make this right. And he dispersed the American ground forces there. He found that we weren't getting enough intelligence, we weren't having enough influence at local areas, we weren't bringing along local leaders. And if they didn't know us, how would they trust us? And how would we turn around the situation where it had just become this horrible internecine bloodbath?
Yeah.
And he dispersed his troops. Now the casualty levels went up initially, his own casualty levels, and a weaker leader might have retreated from it. Maybe a weaker support. He reported directly to the President of the United States. Might have said, rethink your plan here. We're getting body bags flown into, back to the US in their dozens. But he didn't, and he stuck with it. And we turned the corner, and casualty rates came down, and influence grew, and really it was the Iraqi people themselves that saw a different future for themselves, that turned away from violence and turned towards trying to build a more stable country.
Fantastic.
Iraq still has its problems, but it was an awful place in 2006.
Yeah, and so that was from one inspiring leader. Then the other thing I wanted, people are always interested in sort of human stories of someone with a successful career like you. You've had moments when you got things wrong, and you've told me how you quickly learned from that. What is that I've got wrong? Learn it. But you had a story of when you were younger squadron commander and a mistake you made and what you've learned from it. Do you want to share that one?
Yeah, and I think it's connected to the stress story. I think in the fact that he had the courage of his conviction. He knew what was right there, and I didn't do that once. It seems so trivial and low level, but I was a young technician myself. My rank came to me because of my technical qualifications. I didn't compete for it to Lance Corporal and Corporal. I went off to Sandhurst when I was a corporal, but I didn't have to compete for it. And I had a couple of young technicians in the squadron, and they were about to be promoted to full corporal, 2 tapes, and I was persuaded that we were going to do this in a fun way, and I was going to pull out their tapes out of a cornflake box.
Their promotion tapes.
Their promotion tapes out of a cornflake box. And for the merriment of the vast majority of soldiers who worked for every promotion they've got, but it sort of devalued the promotion to the young individual. And I saw them sort of slightly crestfallen. I knew it was wrong, but I sort of courted popularity. At the time. I was persuaded to do it. Wouldn't it be fun to do it? I courted popularity, but my better judgment said, no, I had been one of them. I'd been benefit of time promotion, myself in the past, and I got it. I got it wrong. And from then on, no, I trusted my own instinct. I never courted popularity.
Very well.
You make the decision that you believe in. Whether it's popular or not, you make it and you stick with it. Yeah. And that's what I've done since, and I've seen other leaders do.
Good. And finally, the last sort of short comment from you, really, Jim, is what would be your short leadership inspiring tip for other leaders who are listening to us?
It's a military term, and there are so many terms that interplay between civil life and the military, and we've learned, the military have learned of civil and vice versa. But my tip is situational awareness. Everybody has to know what is going on, and in that, it therefore brings communication and making sure that communication is full there. But everybody's got to know what's going on. How can they play their part? How can you allow people to be empowered to do what you want them to do, and even surpass what they do, if they don't have the shared same picture of what the situation is. Situational awareness.
Brilliant.
In any walk is the fundamental thing.
Jim, a pleasure seeing you again.
And you,
Congratulations
John.
on a very successful career. Lovely to talk to you there. Thanks.